This is AC Lockyer, the professional business guide. I'm a third-generation service business entrepreneur, national champion professional fisherman, and serial entrepreneur. Each week, I'm going to invite some of my friends and other influencers in the business industry to talk about leadership, building sales teams, and other topics to help you win and find your true north.
Hey y'all, this is AC Lockyer. This is True North, and I'm the professional business guide guiding you through the wilderness of business. And today I have Mr. Roy Reid with me. Roy is the Executive Director of Communications for all of Advent Healthcare. And not only does he have that great big title there, but he's also one of my best friends in the world. We've done a lot of life together. Hey, Roy, why don't you just take a minute here and just tell people what the Executive Director of Communications for Advent Health is, who Advent Health is, and how you impact that organization.
Sure thing. And first of all, it's great to be here. Thanks for making time. I love the work that you're doing, and I'm excited to be part of the True North program today. So Advent Health is the third largest faith-based healthcare provider in the U.S. We're in 9 states. We operate 50 hospitals, hundreds and hundreds of physician practices and outpatient centers. We have about 65,000 employees nationwide. We are obviously right now in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and so we are operating at a very high level, if you will, in terms of where crisis communications is. Most of my work today is in what we call our system-wide command center operations. And on a normal day, my job is much like it is today, is working with our CEOs and executives on their communications. And so I work to help shape what the core story is in terms of what we're doing as an organization. So working time through strategy and development, through all of our new programs that we launch, and figuring out what's the right thing to put into the messaging and things like that. So during the pandemic, we've had a lot of communication, as you can imagine. And so almost on a daily basis, we're producing video content with certain leaders in the organization for our CEO and others, and getting that out to our employees and putting it out for the public. So one of the things that I've been really fortunate to do as part of my work with our CEO is manage his content on his LinkedIn account. And as you know, LinkedIn has become a sort of that business foundation for social media. So we've been able to leverage a lot of our internal message into that format to be and show our transparency and helping people understand what's happening both with COVID-19 and with Advent Health. And that's been a lot of good lessons learned in that format. So if you wanted to put it in a category, my two primary functions as executive director is thought leadership, managing the executive voice, if you will, and then public affairs. So there's a team within our organization that engages with all the public officials in government, things like that. And I provide them with communication support as part of my portfolio work.
Yeah. So, you know, the big thing right now is, and the question I'm sure on everybody's mind is, okay, so you're the third largest faith-based hospital system in the United States. We know you've been impacted by COVID-19. Just even preparing for it must have been monumental. You know, to tell us what the temperature is. I mean, tell us how you guys feel you've responded. Give us kind of a little nutshell report, because we would be negligent not to at least ask the question because you're so close to the situation.
Sure. It's we're living through something that none of us have ever experienced before, a lifetime experience, if you will, a generational experience. I don't know that our kids will go through this again, or maybe even their kids to do that. So when you think about coming up against something like that, we were the beneficiaries of watching it really impact other parts of the world first. And I think our leadership did a fantastic job of understanding what the impact and what the greatest issue was going to be. And the greatest issue that we were facing as communities would be a flood of sick people overwhelming the hospitals and not being able to take care of them. And then on top of that, you would see all of these other issues come flooding in on just the regular care that people need. And so working with our communities, managing a lot of the expectations of having to completely shut down elective procedures. So when the governors and the president and others said no more, we had to adjust to that. We had to really make an adjustment to that. And I would tell you that what I most respect about our leadership through all of this is that they took a position of taking care of our people first.
Right, sure.
So
yes.
we made a commitment coming out of the gates that said, in our communities, there's two reasons why this is a good idea. Number one, we keep our team intact. We keep the people inside of the healthcare system who know it best, who are trained and ready to respond. And if we can redeploy them to other places that now need attention, when we had to put screening people out in front of hospitals, when we had to change the way people are processed to make sure that they were tested appropriately, when we put community testing out, all of these things gave us a means by which to redeploy. That was number one. But number two is the economic side. So in many of our communities, we're the top employer. We're the 1, 2, or 3 employer. And so
you suck the wind out of the marketplace. I mean, there's no money. Yeah.
And so those were those two commitments. And so on both on a clinical side, I think we have some of the brightest people that had worked with the CDC before that were informing our infectious disease issues and helping us understand how this virus acts, how this virus goes, how this virus is going to perhaps flow through different communities and what some of the challenges were going to be. We became instant collaborators and partners with public officials. And so a lot of our work in most of our communities was informing the public as to what they needed to do and how they needed to do that and what measures needed to be taken. And then, as I mentioned before, internally, just having that commitment to keep our people safe, because we really gave our supply and supply chain people carte blanche to go out and find protective equipment for our people in any way they could. And they did a fantastic job of making sure that we had all of the supplies in place. And then creating our redeployment system and going so far as to guaranteeing that through June 6th. So after June 6th, our hope and our prayer is that we'll be back to standard operations. And then it's really up to us to communicate to the community that it's okay to come back. Because there's, as you can imagine, the backlog of people that are out there that need a procedure, that need to see their doctor, that need to do that. And then the other thing we did well, and I think a lot of people will benefit from this coming out of it, is that we really leaned into technology. We launched virtual visits that you can do on your phone or your computer with a physician. Myself, as you know, I've got some medical issues that need regular attention, and I was able to just pick up the phone, FaceTime with my doctor, talk to him about what was going on. He just was able to respond to that, make the recommendation, get a prescription, done. Didn't need to do anything else. So those virtual visits have really come to life, and people realize that you don't always have to take 4 hours out of the day to do a doctor's appointment.
Yeah,
and then
to go get a prescription for an antibiotic. Yeah.
Right. And then the other one was we launched what we call a home monitoring program that working with your physician and some other folks allowed people to go home early and then be monitored at home in a way that it was just as if they were still being observed, right? They had a 24-hour monitor on and things like that. So we're seeing things come out of this terrible event.
Oh, sure.
That will be long-term fantastic opportunities. And we've already put people on it to say, don't stop, keep it going. Why weren't we doing this sooner? And some of it's regulatory. We had to lean on the government and say, hey, look, you either turn this on
Right.
how to do it, or people aren't going to get health care.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's when there's a struggle like this. It really enriches and deepens and invigorates the innovation cycle, because you have to solve the problems. You can't just stop and bury your head in the sand. You have to solve the problems. Well, cool. So we've got a really good idea of. Okay. One note.
And I think this is the most important thing I could share right now at this time is we're ready to reopen. So we most of our markets, we've already gotten clearance, and elective surgeries are happening. Other programs are opening up. We're safe. We've already made allowances for how people need to come into our facility, how people need to stage in our facility. Distances are very well measured out.
Right.
All of those things are taken care of now. And so I know that people are probably wondering, is it safe to go into a hospital where I know they're still going to have these patients with COVID-19? And the answer is absolutely. We have wards set up with just those patients. So they're off in their own place, and everything else is ready to run.
Yeah, and and that's a big part of it is I know the states that your hospitals are in, and you guys, from what I understand, tell me if I'm wrong, but you didn't get inundated as the worst case scenario was going to be. So
yeah, I would say we did the communities where we are did a really good job in terms of understanding the importance of the timing of things and making sure that shelter in place became something that you did, and you did it right, and you took care of it, and you move on. I mean, you and I are sitting here in Florida, where if you look at our numbers, if you look at our demographics, you would say, man, Florida's a tinderbox for this thing to explode. 10 times.
Bunch of blue-haired old people.
Right? And so with all of that, we look pretty good right now. And I
really good.
I give credit to a lot of good input, collaboration, and people working together to make that happen.
Well, and because things didn't blow up as much, I mean, most of your hospital system is in Florida, and then you do scatter out throughout the country some.
Yeah.
But because things were handled very, very well, and the American people did respond. I mean, it's hard for us to give up control, especially, us Ds on the DISC assessment and type A personalities. But because everything did go as well as it did, you didn't have that all hands on deck moment. So you needed to keep your people busy. If you're going to keep them on the payroll, you had to keep them engaged. You had to keep them strategically involved in things. Yep. And that's a lot of businesses had to do that. I had to do that with my business. I had to make the decision not to lay anybody off.
Yeah.
What government resources I was going to use to do that. Then even if you get money like PPP money, you can't just have people just sitting around. You got to now figure out, okay, I got your payroll taken care of for 8 or 10 weeks. What am I going to have you do? But you do this, the most important point you made when you were talking about this, you do this because you've taken a lot of time, resources, energy, training to assemble this incredible team. You've got your best team on the court. And then if COVID-19 comes in and tears all that apart, not only do you have to come back economically from all of that, but also too, you have to completely reassemble your team. And allowing your team to stay in place, keeping them engaged, moving them around resource-wise so that they can benefit and bless other people or other businesses or other communities while you're still making their payroll is just a testament to how great the Advent healthcare system is.
Well, let me add a couple things to that as well, and I think this will be good for your listeners to hear. We would not have been able to do that had we not had long-term thinking in our organization that goes back 20 years and a commitment to financial prudence and planning. And it's those things that will put a company in the right place during a crisis like this to be able to either pull from the rainy day fund because you've set money aside thinking to yourself, there's going to be that day. There's going to be that season that we're going to go through, and we're going to need that, or be in a position where you can leverage really good credit or a really good standing in the community or otherwise, where you can walk into your bank and the banker looks at you and says, let me tell you something. I know we're about to get that. Here's your line of credit. I want to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time with the right resources. And that's an underlying part of this story that is just really good business sense that we need to think about as we look back on this, and look ahead. Because one thing to think about, I don't know that, as you and I were talking before this, I don't know that we'll ever see anything like this again in our lifetime. But what I do believe is that we will see similar events occur based on, one, COVID-19's not gone away, and it won't go away until we figure out a vaccine that does away with it. So seasonally, we're going to get hit with things, and they may be harder hit. So there may be periods of time that we need to think about differently. The new normal is going to kick in as we begin to go back to work and things open up more and more. But I would just encourage people who lead, own, and operate businesses to not assume that when the green light go happens, that everything just goes back to the same way it was, and it's going to be 100 years before we see another something like this come. I really believe that this is there will be similar, smaller events, but it could be interruptions in the business cycle, interruptions in our lives, if you will, that we're going to just need to be prepared for.
No, absolutely. Cool. So, hey, man, we've known each other a long, long time.
Right.
We've raised our kids together. We've gone to the same church together. We've done little vacations and trips, and just spent a ton of time with each other over the years. It's been a wild ride for us, especially as our kids got to be teenage years, and now we've got adult children that we're having to deal with. You've been a huge blessing to my life. You've come and spoke at my company's annual events, I think 3 times now, and shared your stuff. It's just been really, really cool. Can you remember anything or think of anything from our just doing life together that stands out to you, or
a couple of things. So I'm
to nail me to the cross on or anything?
No, your check cleared. We're good. I'll tell you 2 things. One, it's exciting to be on this show, maybe more than anything else, because I remember a lunch at Cecil years and years ago where you and I talked about a framework that excited you, and that is how you were able to think through and really plan, and now are living through this idea of having been almost a creator of a business format, a founder, if you will, of an idea. And now you did it for so many years, and now you've been able to take that knowledge and take that idea and take those things and just as a ministry, share that with other people and do so in a way that now with 200 companies in all parts of the world come out. And I think nothing is more exciting in many regards than knowing that through that channel you've created, through this channel, and the other mechanisms that you've put into place, whether it's the training, the products, the services, the equipment, all of those things, you've charted out in that way, and it's just been exciting and a blessing for me to be part of that journey. Whether it was conversations, on the Banana River, fishing, or conversations at the RV, sitting down over a fire pit, or at church on Sunday, or when we would sneak off to church to go buy coffee, or whatever it was. It's neat to Denver Stutler, a common friend, we had the saying that most people only see photographs of your life, and
right, the highlight reel,
that ever get to see the movie.
Yeah.
So having a front seat at the movie's been great. And then the other thing, is just the personal side of it. There are a few people that you get to do life with at the level that the Reids and the Lockyers and maybe just a few other people I'd throw into that mix had the opportunity to do. And when you think about the power, the value, the rewards of relationships, I think of all of those gifts that have come through our relationship over that time.
Well, thank you. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that when, oh gosh, it's coming up on, well, this summer will be 10 years, about 10 years ago, was when I had to walk away from a family business that I owned.
Yeah.
And just had a really, really bad family business breakup. The year prior to that, my 2009 was kind of year 2019. You know, your heart blew up, my business blew up.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of people don't know those conversations that you and I had, you know, you sitting in my office at my house,
right.
and me just with my head in my hands, sobbing, didn't know what I was going to do. I had been attacked and had just some horrible stuff happen to me. And, you know, I thought it was the end of the road. And you were very encouraging to me. You're like, no, AC, you're talented. Anybody in the world would love to have you work for them. You know, you should just go out and do like coaching and consulting, and, you know, and you not only coached me through that, but you were just a steady hand, just a person that was there for me, you know, just saying it's okay, you're going to be fine. You know, because at 40 years old, I'm a completely different person now at 50 than I was at 40.
Yeah.
And at 40, you've gone through your 30s, you've kind of become your own person, and now you're hitting that middle age time, and you're like, when the thing that's been your thing all your life completely blows up and goes away, you're like, holy smokes, what's going on? And
right.
I could count on less than one hand the people in my life that went through that with me and made sure I stayed encouraged and lived on to fight the next fight, and then really get to bless a lot of people around the world, and in the next reiteration be far more successful than I thought I was before. And I had a great life before, accomplished a lot of things. My highlight reel was full. But this last decade I've been through has been a lot more meaningful. And I appreciate you so much for being there and being a part of that, because, you know, I didn't know what the next move was.
My biggest reward in life is being able to do an event like Softwashapalooza, because when I can walk into a room where somebody who I have great respect for has transformed lives and then help contribute to that on a regular basis, those are the moments, right? I mean, it's not about the business or the money or the pieces. All of those are vehicles by which we enhance our ability to change and transform lives. And that's why we do what we do. Right. And those are the things that have to keep you motivated, because the others come and go. As you just said, you know, 10 years ago, $250 in your pocket, no idea what was going to happen next. It was other things that helped contribute to this idea that transformed into what it is today. And your motivation was what kept it pure and focused and on point.
Oh, well, thank you. So my 2009, my business blew up. Your 2019, it was literally coming up here in, I think, another week and a half, 2 weeks is going to be your 1 year anniversary from the day that you really should have died. Tell people about that story and about that night. Just the story of that one night is really incredible. Share that with us.
It'll be it's May 26th is the 1 year anniversary. And I'm actually sitting in the room, if you will, where Kim and I had been watching a movie together, and I fell asleep and woke up at 2 a.m. with the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. It was as if somebody had punched a hole through my chest and was just grinding away at my heart. And
like the priest in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Exactly. So I run in the bedroom, and Kim's asleep, and I said, honey, I need you to drive me to the emergency room. I think I'm having a heart attack. And she gets in the van, and we start driving there. And on the way, I start to have a stroke. So I become non-responsive. I can't speak. I can't respond to her. My face has gone into that stroke mode. And by the time she gets to the hospital, I'm completely out. And she and a nurse have to drag me out of the car to get me into a a bed and seen. And as they're doing what we call sort of the cardiac workup, they're getting ready to run me through a bunch of tests. One of the nurses notices that there's no feeling in my hands and legs, and he tells the doctor, I think we should assume this is an aortic dissection and get him back to a CT scanner immediately, or he might just die right here. And he was right. So they put me in the CT scan. They see that what is essentially happening.
And I'll pause you for a second. This is the hospital that you work for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
so you're a true believer.
I love it so much. I needed to use the product at its height.
Right. This is your product testimonial.
It is.
Yeah.
And so they run the scan, and essentially, for those who may not understand this term, an aortic dissection is when your aorta begins to split. And some people have a dissection. They can be diagnosed with this, and it's something that is a small little thing that they monitor and keep a lookout on. And their concern is it might turn into an aneurysm, which is the expansion of the artery and the threat that it'll break. But in my case, this dissection went from the carotid artery here all the way down to the root of the aorta, which is down here in the belly. It was so bad when they saw it, they told Kim, bring the kids back and say goodbye, because we're not sure that he's going to make it to the big hospital. We've ordered the helicopter to come in and fly him down. And so I have these images in my head that are happening because they filled me up with morphine. And so I'm just sort of, I visualize things that were going on, but I don't remember much of anything. I do remember being a bit of a smart aleck and saying to Kim while they're saying goodbye to me that wouldn't it be a crazy thing if this turned out to be bad heartburn?
Yeah.
And they all knew it wasn't, but I was too drugged up to know it. And the last thing I truly remember is being wheeled onto this helicopter and looking up and seeing the blades turn before they completely put me out. Fly me down to our main large campus in Orlando, Florida. And I go into 6 hours of surgery. And so if you think about the timeline just to that point, at 2 a.m., I had this searing pain in my chest. And what I've learned since then from a few people, in fact, one of my good friends came up to me, gave me this hug. He's not a real huggy kind of guy. And I said, well, Joe, I'm happy to see you too. And he said, no, you don't understand. My brother had an aortic dissection. And he felt the pain and was dead 8 minutes later.
Right.
So I think of the event that night in 8-minute segments, right? So I go back and tell Kim, we get in the car, we drive. It's 15, 20 minutes to the hospital. Should have died there. They get me in, they start looking at me. That takes another 15 or 20 minutes. Probably should have been dead at that point. They do a CT scan on me. They put me in a helicopter and fly me down to Orlando. The fact that they flew me at probably now 4 or 5 in the morning, you think about the interstate's empty, no one's on the road. But the difference between an ambulance and a helicopter is milliseconds that, in my case, mattered supremely.
Right.
They get me down there, and the surgeon that's on duty is the Mac Daddy guy for aortic dissections. And if this had happened a week later.
In the country.
Yeah.
I mean, not in your hospital, in the country.
That's right. And he ends up leaving our system to go to Jacksonville a week later. So I don't get him if this happens a week later.
Wow.
And 6 hours of surgery. I get out, and then the biggest, even coming out of surgery, the nurses that took care of me told me that the surgeon informed them that as they roll me into that room for recovery, that first night, I still only have a 5% chance of living. And the term that was being used in the hospital among the leadership was that there was no prognosis for a positive outcome. So either one of two things happen. I either die in that bed, or I live and have zero quality of life for the rest of whatever I have left. And so everything that happens from that moment is miraculous. And I'm 6 days in a coma. They don't know that I'll come out of it. I wake up on day 7. And when I wake up, I have all my faculties about me. I have, I'm responding to the things that they're asking me for, and I seem to be doing fine. And so over the course of the next 14 days, I stayed in the hospital a total of 24 days, and worked through all of those steps. And I can, like I said, there's very few cases that are as severe as mine that survive.
Right.
And
Yes.
even fewer cases that have any quality of life. And I started to see it pretty soon after. So as I started to progress through my continuum of care, because I ended up having to take 6 months off of work and essentially go through 3 months of cardiac rehab and all of the other things. The first day I go for my cardiac rehab assessment, the nurse who's giving me my intake is, I could tell something was bothering her. I could tell she was uneasy about something. And at this stage of my life now, I ask questions about everything. There is nothing, there is no stone unturned.
Yeah, the filter's not there anymore.
Ever again.
Yeah.
You can't cheat your way through these things, right?
Yes.
It's a couple lessons to be learned for, again, us D, type A's, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I interrupt her and I said, Christine, something's bothering you. And I said, is there something wrong? Did one of the things I do tell you that maybe something's not right? And she takes a deep breath and she apologizes. She said, no, I'm sorry. I got to tell you, I read your chart and I know what you went through, and you're not what I expected. I said, what did you expect? She said, somebody a lot less alive.
Yeah.
To come through that door. And even recently I had to go to the hospital for some back pain I was having, and that emergency doctor comes in. This is just 2 weeks ago, and she looks at me and says, okay, we've read your history. Very interesting. But yeah, there are, I could spend the next 5 hours outlining all of the little things that indicated, number one, that I was getting tremendous care from amazing people that just went out of their way for me to make sure that I was going to make it. And even down to the willingness to push back on protocol. So on day 7, I wake up, but I'm still on the intubation and the breathing. So I have this tube down my throat. And the nurse that came on that day was a mom at the school that Kim works at and goes to. And just having somebody, a familiar face that you know, come in and take care of you that day. She had prayed on her way to work that day, because the school had been praying for us, that she might be able to have some hand in taking care. And they assigned her to me. But she tells Kim that morning, she said, the number one thing I have to do is get this out of him, to get intubation off, because it'll start to do more damage than good on his vocal cords and in the throat. And if we go into the weekend and they come in on a short shift on the weekend and they see he's been on this 7 days, they're just going to give him a tracheotomy. And you don't want to have to take care of that for the rest of your life, which is essentially cutting a hole here that you can't replace. So she figures out that if she can regulate my breathing by using a CPAP or a BiPAP machine, which is something that if you have sleep apnea. Right? Yeah. That she could get it out. And so she orders one, and respiratory, bless their hearts for being policy wonks, but respiratory says, well, we don't have a prescription for sleep apnea. We can't just give it to you. And she says, no, you don't understand. I need this to save this patient from having and they kept pushing back. So about midday, I look out of the glass door that the room's in, and I see Kathleen, and she's giving this doctor the what for in the chest, right?
Needling him in the chest.
And she gets this sleep apnea machine, puts me on it, and has that tube out like that. And I share that story because, we think about what a service standard is. Mm-hmm. And at Advent Health, we have 4 guiding principles to our service standards. Keep me safe, love me, make it easy, and own it.
Hmm.
And those four things are at the heart of what it is that we do. And Kathleen just exemplified all of those things. Above all else, regardless of policy or otherwise, she was going to keep me safe by keeping that tracheotomy out of me. She loved on us. And Kim will tell you that that day she was all over it. And she only took care of me one day.
Yeah.
And it was
the right day
that I needed her
the most,
an advocate at her level, to be there for me. And she owned it. She took ownership and said, I don't care what the policy is. I'm going to get this guy off that respirator. And it's just, again, a testament to having and putting into your organization service standards, values, mission, and those things that a lot of times we lean into as soft skill or optional. We'll get to them when we can. No, they define the moments that make the most difference with the customer.
Yep. So you obviously work for this great organization. You have a very important position at Advent Healthcare. They certainly came through in your moment of need. You like the product, and you have a great product testimonial. But something else that you've done is for a long time, you had been working on a curriculum, or it was going to be a book, and then it became a curriculum, and now you do corporate training on it, on trust. And it was originally called Outrageous Trust. Some of the people on this podcast will remember you as the Outrageous Trust guy, but now you've rebranded it under the Trust Transformation, and this is a great corporate training thing you're doing. You've run, I think you've mentioned to me, about 3,000 people through the program now. Why don't you tell us about the Trust Transformation, because trust is very important, and we'll hit some bullet points on that. But share with us, hold up your book, and let's talk about the Trust Transformation.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So I partnered with a physician in our company, Dr. Amira Mansfield, and together we created this program. So it's still at the core, it has all of the same key ideas about trust, which I'll open up in just a minute, but then it also has a much broader set of ideas as it relates to your own personal health, how it affects and impacts your whole person, if you will. And so we launched it in 2017. And as you said, we've trained about 3,000 people in the program inside of the organization. But here's the core, right? We use the word trust a lot in life, and we use it in so many different ways. When you think about marketing and you think about management, you think about leadership, everybody signs on to the idea of how important trust is. But what we don't often do is break it down into its small parts. And what we often do is we assume it. We assume it's there, and we make that mistake because we don't allow ourselves to be humble enough to really sit back and understand that it's all the little things that we say and do that are either contributing to or taking away from the trust that other people have in us.
True. Yes.
And it's not built on one thing. It doesn't happen one day when you do one thing really well, and then that sets it up and you don't have to worry about it again.
Yeah, you don't get your trust badge on your social media timeline.
You have to cultivate it, and you have to be intentional about it. And so what we do is really try to help people understand that trust is a contribution of both an emotional set of drivers and an experiential set of drivers. Mm-hmm. So it's the connection you have with people emotionally, but it's also the experience that they have with you that defines whether they're going to trust you or not. And then even within that, we take it to another level and say, there's 4 attributes that people really look at to say, I'm willing to trust you, and I do trust you, and now I trust you to give you, whether it's business or relationship.
So this is the box. This was it. Yep. If you're going to deliver the takeaway, so to speak, that people can use, that little taste of the ice cream. This is the takeaway. So these four key attributes. Fire them away at us. Give us the juice.
First is being trustworthy, right? We a lot of times we confuse trustworthy with trust. Trust is the outcome. Trustworthy is the first step to getting there. And what trustworthiness is, it's that you trust yourself, that you trust that you're making the right decisions. And so when we think about what are the ingredients of being trustworthy, it's things like integrity. Are you making your decisions the right way on a consistent basis? Fun definition for integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Right.
And then from there, you look at things like having focus on what's most important, attitude. A lot of people discount attitude and think that, well, as long as I do my job, I'm fine. And the answer is no. People judge you on a variety of different things. Attitude's one of them. In fact, attitude's usually the first thing you get judged on as to whether they want to trust you.
Sure.
Right. That first interaction. And then being insightful on things, and having vision for something bigger than yourself. That's that humility of understanding it's not all about you. It's about serving others. And then we look at that trustworthy. That's trustworthy. Then we look at authenticity, being authentic in your relationships. Do you have clarity in who you are and what you're all about? And are you giving people the respect that you should give them? And are you inviting people to be candid with you in your life? Do you have people around you that are willing to tell you the truth when you need to hear it? Not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And are you transparent in what you're doing? Do your words match your deeds on a consistent basis? And that's having an authentic relationship, something that's real and that I know I can count on a regular basis. And then those really kind of trustworthiness sits sort of at that middle point of experience and emotion. Authenticity lies in that emotional side of it. Right. And then on the experiential side is the attribute of being dependable. Do I give a consistent, reliable performance every time people come to me and ask me to do something?
Yes.
And a lot of times we think of dependability, I do it on a regular basis, but are you doing the little things?
Do you do it well on a regular basis?
Yeah. Getting a job done and getting a job done right is a very different experience. And are you willing to subject your performance to feedback, right? So a lot of us will go do a job and think we've done it right, but when somebody complains, we want to write them off as being a complainer. And what we say to people is feedback is a gift. It's a blessing. And it gives you the opportunity to improve. Whether it's the right feedback or not is irrelevant, because you need to just take it in and figure out, if you're willing to take it in, then you can figure out what are the little tweaks that I need to make. Even if I don't want that customer back, I'll apply what I've learned to the next customer that I know I need. And so that dependability is a lot of the practicality of what we do on a day in and day out basis. And it's things like communicating consistently and managing expectations. Because we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to screw up. But as long as we've given people the information they need along the way, then even when we do mess up, it's easier to get forgiven and get that second chance.
Yes.
That's what we need to do. And then the fourth box is sort of the outlier that sits in the upper right corner of the graphic, and it's influence. And it really is, influence is a little bit of an outcome of the other three things. So if you're trustworthy, authentic, and dependable, people give you the trust. And then influence is, what do you do with that trust?
Yeah. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less.
Right. And so it's a gift, right? And we take this influence, what do we do with it now? Yeah. What we tell people is influential people, who make a difference, they make good choices. They don't just make good choices, but they stand behind their commitments. They make a physical or a public commitment to things that they're going to do. They have the humility to ask for help when they need it, to get the right the competencies around them that they need. But more than anything else, the influential people have the courage to finish. And it's in that idea of courage where we find that the people we trust the most are those who are stepping into that space.
Right.
And not afraid to take a stand when it needs to, not afraid to back down when they know they need to. And so those are the 4 attributes. And we teach that alongside with the idea that you really want to be intentional to take responsibility for the relationship.
Yeah.
You don't own what other people do, but you own what you do that impacts those people.
And that's what people don't realize, that everything that we do in life, whether it's our vocation, whether we're trying to sell to people, whether it's our marriage, whatever it is, it's all about relationships. Trust works all the way across the board on that. Those 4 keys there, from being trustworthy to, having that experiential, there's all the things that you talk about there are those multiple layers that really work in everything, whether it's a corporate training atmosphere and you're trying to work together as a team in a corporation, or this could even be an exercise that you can take your family through to grow your family. And because we have to relate to each other. We only draw on and bring people into our lives and really play the game of life with people we trust.
Yeah.
If you don't trust somebody, you remove them from your circle of influence pretty quick.
Now, we tell people that you get better results when you have better relationships.
Right. Yes.
Right. And in being intentional about this, you put yourself in a position that not everyone's going to trust you.
Right.
Let's just accept that. And on top of that, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make bad decisions. You're going to not deliver on your service at some times, and you're going to have to recover from that. And if you know what the drivers are to do that, then you're in a better position to manage through that and to get through that. And you put these things to work for you, and you just have a much more consistent culture that you're working in. You have a much more consistent life that you're living. And again, like you and I talked about at the very beginning, you have the relationships around you that you can lean on in good times or bad. And in the times we're going through now, if not for relationships, a lot of people would be completely out and out and about.
No, for sure. Well, that leads us into our next thing. A lot of the people that make it here on True North are fellow wowzers. And you are looky there. You're a wow factor contributor. You're one of the 52, actually 51, because I'm in the book twice because I was the first person to sign up. But you're one of the wowzers in here. And hey, I bet you we could probably put out a special award or something for somebody who guessed what your word is, but it probably wouldn't be very hard. Your word is trust.
Yep.
So in this book, we take common words. This is 52 influencers with 52 words, and we redefine those words, the word of the week, and we're redefining those in a way that people may not normally think of that word. So what was the twist that you put on trust here in the Wow Factor?
Well, it's a lot of what we just talked about, and it's that idea of intentionality. It's that idea of getting out ahead of it. Again, I think where I'm hoping most people will benefit from any exposure to what I have to say or what programs I put out there is being intentional about it. And Dr. Mansfield, my co-author, she said to me one day, she called me one day after we had our first meeting and we had gone through the training program together. She said, "Okay, I get it now." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" She said, "Well, I sat through the whole program that you led through and I understood everything you talked about and all of it made perfect sense to me.
Right.
But I was in a meeting the other day and I had to meet with somebody who I didn't particularly like and who had been essentially an adversary to me. One of the things I tell people is that, you're never going to have everybody in your camp. You're always going to have advocates, allies, but you're also going to have agnostics and adversaries.
Yes.
And I'm sitting in this meeting and she says something that just to irritate me and I'm getting ready to respond and automatically this filter goes down. And I realized I need to take responsibility for this. I need to not react. I need to be humble. I need to engage, and I need to own this moment and take what she said to me and now try to turn that into an opportunity for a positive relationship outcome. And that's the twist, is that intentionality changes us. And not only does it change us, but one of the benefits from living this way is the people around you are changed by it. So they notice that you're not letting people draw you into things that are going to create trust busting actions, but you're willing to take that step back, give some analysis to it, and then respond in a way that actually builds that opportunity, builds that relationship, and doesn't go after it.
Well, certainly, whether it be the word trust or, my word fair, being able to take a book like this, it's 52 words. It's called the Word of the Week because you're not supposed to speed read this. This is not an episode that just got released on, or a series that just got released on Netflix. You don't binge this book. This book is best digested one word per week. Go through 52 weeks and let this wash over you and certainly change your life. So, just real encouraging thing there. Great, easy read book, and we encourage all you guys to get it. Roy is one of the co-authors or contributing authors of that book.
Well,
if people say that again.
You had Christian Grasso on.
Yes, I had Christian Grasso on. Yep. We've had Daryl Amy on. You're the third wowzer. We're working our way down through the wowzer list. I got at least 52 if you don't count me, 50 podcasts right in this book right here.
Well, if they saw Chris, then they'll know the energy, right?
Yeah.
Just that alone,
Chris is like, he's like Kramer on Frasier. He came in, hey, I got this great idea. It's just a wow thing, Right. He's just like, you know how he is.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, he's just full of energy. It's a great idea. It was a great project. I just loved participating in with him and making his dream happen. And we're going to have Ken and Birch on here in a few weeks, and we are part of a group with him called Dream Builders. We're going to talk about Dream Builders and how people can get involved in that. But it's just this great circle. I mean, honestly, you are the average of your top 5 relationships you have in your life.
Right.
And part of the reason why, I've accomplished what I've accomplished in my life. You've accomplished what you've accomplished in your life. Many of the people that will come on this True North podcast here have done the things they've done. Is a lot of these people are people that we hang with, we do life with, and we're only as good as the people that are breathing life in us and we're spending time with. And part of the reason why people look at us and say, man, you guys are so successful, man, it's just because of who we hang with, how we're talented by God, how we put that to work, what we allow into our life as far as influences, who we trust, and it makes us better. So, Roy, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
So again, with Advent Health, and I would say 2 things. One, if they look up the trusttransformation.com, it'll take them to a site that'll show the program that we have, and there is opportunities for people to access that. They can reach out to me. I'm on social media, on LinkedIn at Roy Reid. I'm on Twitter at Roy Reid. I'm on Instagram at Roy Reid APR. And actually, there's a website, roywreid.com, that has some additional information on it as well about this program and a little bit more about who I am. Or they can reach me at roy.reid@adventhealth.com.
And you're even on Facebook too.
I am on Facebook.
That's my favorite social media. As you know, I live on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, man, we're rounding up here to the 1 hour mark here. It's been great. You've got a great story. I mean, literally, we could go for hours. I mean, just your story of how you survived and all of the little miracles made up the one big miracle.
Yeah.
And you're a walking testimonial to the Advent healthcare system. My wife and I tease that, in our life directive, and we've told our children and everything else, that if we're ever in a car wreck or have health issues or whatever, take us to Advent Healthcare. Used to be the old Florida hospital chain, but because they're bigger than Florida now, it's Advent Healthcare. And it's a great hospital system, and I'm glad you've landed there. Both of us have had many iterations in our careers over the years, and I think you've really found your role there and helping with the communication and the voice, this voice that the hospital has through their executive leadership, and making sure that they're on message, to take a phrase from your old consulting company that you used to work for. Great guys over there. But to make sure that people are on message, they have that consistent voice, and for you to be managing that for people is so, so very important. A lot of the success I've had in my life is because of the coaching you've given me on how to handle a lot of things PR-wise, but also to making sure I have that consistent voice. So I just want to thank you so much for my personal life that you've influenced, but also too for spending time with us tonight. Any parting words?
Well, back at you. I mean, it's relationships are always a two-way street. So I've always appreciated both sides of it, and we've all navigated through things because of that. So that's great, and just keep doing this. It's that creating that consistent voice where people can come and engage in ideas that help other people. That's what it's all about.
Awesome. So guys, hope you enjoyed it this evening. Again, this is True North. I'm AC Lockyer, the professional business guide, guiding you through the wilderness of business. We'll see you next time.